This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucs, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. All right, it is Packers and Bucs week, and it is we're going to jump right into this because we are talking about two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. As a matter of fact, when they met, a year ago, NBC hyped it up on Sunday night as the GOAT Bowl. It didn't work out very well for Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers and the squad, but it did work out well for Tom Brady. New set of circumstances this year. Brady's in Tampa. Aaron is rejuvenated, and Green Bay continues to roll, looking to get to 5-0 as they go down to Tampa Bay. And joining me right now is, and I mean this in all sincerity, because for some reason about 5, 6, 7 years ago, the NFL all of a sudden started churning out more stats, and we started learning more about stats. And my next guest, if you follow him on Twitter at @BenFennell_NFL, he tweets out some of the nerdiest stats out there. And Ben, I hope you don't take offense to that, but some of your stuff is way above my head. But thank you for coming on, my friend. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. And certainly I don't take any offense to the film nerd or, film rat or whatever the term is. I love watching tape, always have since my days of working at NFL Films. But it just seems like there's a new niche that's interested in more analytical, deep X's and O's football. And I worked on the show Playbook through NFL Network and NFL Films for 6 years. And we were always on the fence with whether fans really wanted to know deeper X's and O's information about what they're seeing on Sundays. And it seems like this niche has really grown. And I'm not sure if it's the release of Game Pass a couple years ago to the public, or whether fans just want and crave knowing things that they don't know, and they want to see how complex and detailed this game can be. And every play has 22 moving parts. There's a lot to look at, and it's so much fun, especially when you have a great think tank like Twitter, where you can talk to former coaches and players and analysts and scouts and look at the same thing through different lenses. And I just love that aspect about football. So many different perspectives, and the way a quarterback looks at it is completely different than a middle linebacker. And if you're willing to be open to other perspectives and understand you don't know everything, it's such an interesting kind of niche industry, and you could really absorb some information if you surround yourself with the right people.
It's almost too much for me sometimes. Like I start going through like your tweet storms, and I'm just like, I don't know what any of that stuff means. And I have 3 babies that I stay home and take care of full time. So it's like I don't have time to go read. But when I do get a chance, Ben, at night, when the kids are asleep and the wife is doing something, I sit there and I look through your stuff. I think it's fascinating, and I don't think I'm smart enough to comprehend it all. But I think it's a really, really cool angle. And I think what impresses, and we'll get to the Packers and the Bucs here in a sec, but I think coaches have really embraced that. Guys like Matt LaFleur, guys like Kyle Shanahan, Mike Leach in the college game. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're just becoming more flexible and more willing to adapt their schemes and take ideas from wherever they see it, whether it's on Friday nights or Saturdays in the college game. And I find that the NFL, particularly on offense, is less about jamming players in their system anymore, which really dominated the 90s. And you wanted guys to come and run your system. And now it's much more fluid, and you're adapting your system and schemes to the players you have around you. And I think that's good coaching in 2020, is adapting to your talent, your players, and being a little bit more flexible. And I think the best coaches in the league, whether it's McVay or LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid, aren't set in stone with what they want to do. And it's a very fluid offensive design.
I think the Packers fans can relate to that because they're watching LaFleur, and you don't have Devontae, and you don't have Alan Lazard, but the offense isn't missing a beat, and they're still scoring points at will. Meanwhile, for years, and I made this comparison before under Mike McCarthy, when you lose your number one wide receiver, it was like, oh, somebody has to play wide receiver because the offense can't change. It's a breath of fresh air, what we're seeing now in Green Bay.
Absolutely. And I feel like the McCarthy era was so much more reliant on the Jimmies and Joes. And Matt LaFleur is so much more about the X's and O's. And there's so much you can do to help an offense be productive and move down the field. And we've talked ad nauseum about LaFleur's high uptick in pre-snap motion and usage of bunches and more of a balanced play calling and more diverse personnel groupings. All those kind of, for lack of better words, new age NFL offenses that help an offense move down the field. I feel like Mike McCarthy put a lot more pressure and emphasis on the individual players. Now, when you have Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson and Donald Driver and Greg Jennings and Jermichael Finley, those are some pretty good players. You let them go win. Suddenly that talent comes back down to earth. You need to coach your way out of it. And Mike McCarthy never really adapted and re-coached his way out of it when he lost some of that talent.
Where do you slot Bruce Arians, the head coach that the Packers are going to see this week?
He's definitely a top 10 offensive play caller, and he's one of the more aggressive play callers in the NFL, and he loves to push the ball down the field. He's not shy about that. So I love his attacking mentality, and whether it's Jameis Winston last year throwing 30 touchdowns, 30 picks, or Tom Brady, they're going to push the ball down the field. And I love the way they take their chances, and a lot of them are very calculated, but it's an aggressive down the field shot play type of offense, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
As you and I are recording this, we don't know if Chris Godwin's going to play. Mike Evans seems to have an ankle injury every single week of his career, but he's still a fantastic top 10 wide receiver. You know, they've got the rotating tight ends in there. I know Gronk's a little banged up right now. But what does the offense look like to you so far? No preseason, old man Brady throwing to these guys. They're in, they're out. And here we are with a matchup that, you know, is going to feature the quarterbacks, but there are other guys on that Tampa offense.
Well, I think you're just seeing much more consistent play, much more confident play on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Jameis Winston, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, completely overshadowed how dominant that defensive group was. He was routinely putting that defense in bad positions, short fields, things like that. They've been a dominant run defense group for 3 or 4 years now. Now they got some athletic linebackers, Levante David and Devin White, some young players on the back end of that secondary, like Antoine Winfield Jr., might be Defensive Rookie of the Year. That defense is great. The offense was killing them in the past. So now that I look at the Tom Brady-led offense, it's not that they're this juggernaut. He's just not making the mistakes at the cataclysmic rate that Jameis Winston does. And suddenly when you're not doing that, oh sheesh, we have a pretty competitive football team. And they were 3-1. They lost that one to the Bears on Thursday night. They had some penalties and some clunky things that really wasn't happening to them earlier in the season. But just offensively, just a much more efficient, productive, consistent group. And they don't have to be the heroes because that's a defensive football team. But you add Tom Brady, you add a new piece on the offensive line like Tristan Wirfs, suddenly you're realizing the Tampa Bay Bucs are collectively a very competitive team.
I know they lost to the Saints early, and then they ran off, like you said, 3 in a row before stubbing their toe against the Bears. I was buying into it, and I don't know if I can say the same thing about Tampa Bay. I mean, it's just one loss, and for the life of me, I have no idea how the Bears have so many wins. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But is Tampa in that second tier in the NFC where it's Green Bay and Seattle, and I don't know if Arizona's there yet, but is Tampa, in your mind, a contender?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that next tier and trying to figure out who's contenders and pretenders will really figure out over the next 3 and 4 weeks, you know, whether the Saints are a competitive team this year to make a strong playoff run with Breeze. Obviously, the NFC East, somebody's making the playoffs out of that group, whether they're at 7-9. All you have to do is get into the party. And I could tell you right now, teams don't want to see the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs, or I know the Cowboys with the quarterback situation is not what it looked like to start the year. But yeah, there's a couple teams kind of teetering right now. The Niners obviously aren't what we expected. The Rams, the Cardinals, that whole next group in that NFC West after Seattle, there's some competitive teams. But getting out the gates of 2020, I don't think the team's identities in September are necessarily what we're going to see in December, particularly this year, COVID, training camp, no preseason. Some teams aren't going to hit their stride for a month or two. So I think the next couple of weeks will really start to weed out who are the contenders and pretenders in the NFC.
Where should Green Bay fans be scared of this Tampa offense? You
know, that's a really good question. And considering the injuries, you know, Mike Evans obviously dinged up, Godwin dinged up, OJ Howard's already got put on IR, but everybody's dealing with some injuries. So I'm obviously worried about their offensive line, establishing the run game with Ronald Jones and McCoy, and we'll see if Leonard Fournette is ready to go. It's a very balanced offensive attack to beat you up on the inside and take some shots down the field off play action to, whether it's Scotty Miller down the field or Mike Evans. I'm just really afraid of the way Tom Brady, he's still Tom Brady. He's still going to operate a confident and productive offense. He's the same guy he was today as he was 15 years ago. You know where he's going to be. He's a statue, pocket passing distributor. So I love those quarterbacks to attack because you know where they're going to be. They don't boot him out. They don't roll him out. They don't move the pocket. So I really want to dial up the blitzing this week and try to test the mind of Mike Pettin versus the mind of Tom Brady.
You brought up Scotty Miller, and I know that a couple of weeks ago it was the Zacchaeus show. Olamide Zacchaeus, if I pronounce his name wrong, sorry. That
was a good attempt.
I could just roll right through it. Nobody would know. I'll edit that out later. But he had a big game. Again, when Ridley was taken out by primetime John, Julio was out. I see the same kind of role for Scotty Miller. If Jair is on Mike Evans most of the night, somebody has to catch passes on that offense. And I feel like after last week, not even looking at Scotty Miller, Ben, I feel like this is the week Scotty Miller catches 6-7 balls.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be the team to be their coming out party. He's a guy that's already been their down the field shot play guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a high volume presence in the offense. He'll always be that down the field target. He's a little bit undersized. I don't think he's going to be that possession guy. He's about 5'9", 175 pounds. I'm really interested to see if Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota starts to take a bigger role in the offense. Really good route runner, really good hands, can win at every level of the defense. I think he may be a better fit to maybe get that 10, 12 targets in the offense if some of those lead guys aren't ready to go.
Does Leonard Fournette have a spot in this offense, or is he just going to be change of pace guy for Ronald Jones?
I think that is a spot in the offense, and I always want that guy. I want that bell cow between the tackles, wear you down running back. And it's okay if he's a point of entry back where you need a little bit of a runway. I worked for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017. We had LeGarrette Blount. Teams did not want to tackle that guy in the fourth quarter. I love having that change of pace guy. And then we had Jordan Howard last year, and to wear a defense down and have that change of pace with Ronald Jones, McCoy, they're going to work in Keyshawn Vaughn a little bit more on third down. I love having Fournette in that offense, especially when it gets cold. Maybe not down in Tampa Bay, but you go on the road in December, that formula works and carries over from the regular season into the playoffs. And if they want to have a true physical identity, which I know Bruce Arians wants that style, and I think some of the offensive linemen really kind of allude to that profile, like Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa and Jensen and Ali Marpet. I love that they can wear you down as well as throwing the ball down the field.
The only thing I will say about Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette and all those guys, fantasy managers, me, of Ronald Jones, don't want to see Leonard Fournette whatsoever. So I hope you're wrong. I think you're right, but I hope that you're wrong. Let's go to the other side and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he found something. He ditched Danica, the Jordan Love pick, year 2. I mean, what is it about this year? Because I've said for the last few seasons, anybody who's doubting Rodgers is a fool, and he's still, even before this season began, a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Something has clicked, and he's playing like a bat out of hell right now. What is it to you?
Well, all the outside stuff, we could scour through that 2010 tape and try to see what he found, whether it's something mechanical, footwork, scheme, or maybe it's just how he buckled his chin strap. It could be as simple as that. But what I see on tape is a guy that's willing to play within structure and timing and rhythm of the offense. And this is different than the Aaron Rodgers that blessed us with amazing plays out of structure and improvisationally for about 10 years. And he had every right to continue to play like that until the results started to dry up. And then we started to look at the process and we said, why does he keep holding on to the ball? Why does he try to keep extending the play? Just make the throw. And now we're starting to see a guy trusting the offense, trusting the players around him, trusting the scheme, not holding on to the ball. I think he has 5 scrambles on the season. In that last game against Atlanta, the 2 plays he held on to the ball were the 2 most troublesome plays of the night, where he escaped out to the left for about 8-9 seconds, eventually got a defensive holding penalty, but got sacked. And then 2 plays later, he tried to escape out the back door and tweaked his knee. Aaron Rodgers holding onto the ball is no longer producing the results it used to. But now he's playing within structure of the offense. He's getting the ball out fast, trusting the playmakers around him. And it's really exciting to see the Packers putting 30 points up on the board on a week-to-week basis. And Aaron Rodgers does not have to be a hero. That's the most dangerous and scariest proposition for the NFL, that this offense can be a juggernaut, and Aaron Rodgers does not have to be a superhero.
And they're doing it without their full complement of players week in and week out. I mean, you had DeGuara early, he's done. You had Devontae early, he's missed a few games. Lazard's out for God knows how long. EQ might be coming back. I mean, is that Aaron or is that LaFleur's system?
Well, I think it's kind of what I alluded to before. We're getting out of this emphasis on the Jimmies and Joes and more about the X's and O's. And where can we help these players be successful, whether it's scheming them open or having misdirection or eye candy, tons of motion. There's things that help schematically this offense. And I love seeing Matt LaFleur that, it doesn't matter who's available. It's next man up because the scheme works. And I love that we've had 4 games and 4 different stars, whether it's Devontae and Aaron Jones, Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan. Who's next? Could it be MVS? Could it be EQ, off the practice squad, or IR coming out of nowhere? That's his type of offense. It's very multiple. They can attack you multiple ways on a week-to-week basis. And I think that's a really exciting proposition.
Well, then you watch Tampa's film, just like Matt LaFleur watches Tampa's film. Probably more in depth than LaFleur, but you watch Tampa's film. What's the best way to attack Tampa?
Well, you're going to take your chances if you think you can run the ball on them consistently. They have proven to be a consistent, dominant run defense group. Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea in the middle there. I know Vita Vea, I think, is dinged up and might have just got put on IR, unfortunately, but I still trust the collective group with the linebackers. So I'm not sure I want to test their run defense that much. I think they have a young, talented secondary, but at the end of the day, they're pretty young. They have a rookie back there, they have a sophomore back there, and they have 2 third-year players. That's their 4 core secondary members. Very young group. So I want to see them maybe deploy a little bit more attack down the field. If they can't keep that run game going, I want to see them kind of move the pocket, maybe implement some screen game that we really haven't seen a lot from the Packers in 2020. So I think Matt LaFleur has a couple things still up his sleeve to kind of handle some dominant run defenses.
What's your take on Valdez-Scantling?
He's an interesting player, but I think he is what he is. I think he's just going to be an over-the-top guy. I don't see him as an underneath possession receiver. He's big, he's tall, he's long. He still has that explosive element to win down the field, and he's proven that in his 3 years in the NFL. Obviously, some drops underneath have been clunky. His ability to separate underneath has been a little bit clunky, but he's been improving each year. And I think the biggest kind of point to make there is, I think it was against the Saints where Rodgers threw him a little hot RPO. And that was traditionally a play that they struggled with the timing and the depth of. And it was great just to see that rapport between Rodgers and MVS and that trust on a play that wasn't down the field. And I feel like those plays have been just a little few and far between with MVS in his career. But if he is just a vertical down the field, over the top guy, that's okay, because there's a place for that in the league, and he's proven to be able to be that guy for the offense.
Yeah, that's Henry Ruggs' career
Exactly,
with the Raiders.
It's just a different style than we're used to. There's guys like that around the league, whether it's, Travis Benjamin or Taylor Gabriel, even Deshaun Jackson to an extent.
That's where I was going to go.
That's what he does. Deshaun doesn't catch a lot in the underneath intermediate area. You put him in positions to not face a lot of press coverage, get some free releases, and work down the field. And I think that's MVS's kind of niche in the league, and that's okay.
Will we ever see Lazard, MVS, EQ, and Devontae all play in the same game in 2020?
I think we will. Towards the end of the year, as guys start to get healthy, I'm hoping it's not just a take your turn getting injured each week. We know the NFL season's a grind, but I think the planets will have to line up eventually, especially with some of those guys, I think, getting healthier on the way up rather than the way down at this point in the season. So I want to say maybe 3-4 weeks away, we might be able to see a full receiver room deployed. Actually, I'm not sure Lazard's timetable with that core muscle surgery. which I've seen a lot more lately over the past couple of years, referring to anything in the abdomen or the hernia area as the core muscle surgery. So not really sure what the timetable is on Lazard, but hoping to see the full room at some point.
I mean, I could sit here and say, let's talk about how great Davante Adams is, but that'd be a waste of airtime in this podcast. I did see a poll today. Somebody said, name your top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. It was on Twitter. I think it was from the NFL Network. And half the group had Davante in there. Half the group did not have Davante in there. I don't know how you can't have Davante Adams, and maybe because he's missed some time, but I don't know how you can't have Davante Adams in the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to believe at this point. And the way he wins is as diverse as anybody in the NFL, from left side, right side of the formation, inside, outside, slot, number 3 at trips, beating zone, press, off coverage, winning shallow, quick game, intermediate, down the field, double moves. I want to say week 1 against the Vikings, he hit the cycle for receivers. He literally hit every way you can possibly win against defensive backs against the Vikings. It was one of the most impressive tapes I've ever seen from a receiver. And I love that he's essentially a 4-6 receiver doing this. And the best receivers, the best route runners in the league are all in that 4-5, 4-6 range. The Allen Robinsons, Davante Adams, Keenan Allens of the world. It's those 4-4 guys that maybe are a little too fast for their own good. And I love the guys in that 4-5-5 range that know how to get open. Mike Thomas, another one. DeAndre Hopkins, another one. Those are the top 5, in my opinion.
Mike Thomas wasn't on the list because it was for 2020. But if memory serves, it was Calvin Ridley.
And that's fair, yeah.
Calvin Ridley, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins. Let's see here.
Calvin Ridley in there.
Ridley was on the list for a lot of people. I'm not sure if I would put him in there right now. And I can't read my own writing. So those were the top 5, and I just can't remember the 4th one, or the 5th one, excuse me. Does Bob Tonyan catch 3 more touchdown passes the rest of the year?
Absolutely. I think he does. I think he does easily. I really like his presence in the offense, the combination of being a good inline tight end with the receiver pedigree and just catching the football down the field, the ability to get open. The tight end position, the running back position is a huge emphasis of LaFleur's offense. That position is not going anywhere.
And that was never a thing with Mike McCarthy. Like, that's why it's like, oh man, we can use this position in this part of the field and these guys other than Jermichael Finley.
No question. And I think the tight end position, especially with, Sternberger maybe not developing like they thought, maybe with DeGuara's injury as well. But I saw Aaron Jones at UTEP. And in that first year in the NFL, I said, this guy is just as talented as Christian McCaffrey and Tariq Cohen and Alvin Kamara, all taken in the same draft. He just wasn't being used like those guys. And that's 100% an indictment on Mike McCarthy and his unwillingness to involve the running backs in the pass game, which I think is a huge, huge element to offense in 2020, is getting those backs involved in the pass game. And we've done it ad nauseum the past 2 years with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, and now working in Tyler Ervin and some other really unique stuff. It's a lot of fun to watch. And the best teams in the league, the Patriots throw a ton to the backs. Christian McCaffrey just had over 100 receptions last year. Kamara, you got to involve the backs in the pass game. They're some of your best athletes, some of your most explosive weapons on the field. It's just doing your offense a disservice to not involve them.
I'd argue Aaron Jones has the second best hands on the team. I mean, after Davante.
I have no issue really, challenging that. We've seen a clunky drop from him or two. He's also made some incredible catches as well. Whether it's going to the ground or adjusting or working along the sideline. I know it's a bit memory burned in my head, that drop down the seam against Detroit last year with my favorite halfback vertical play, the jet all go halfback seam, where it hit him right in the face. But I know he's going to redeem himself.
On the other side of the ball, defensively, Mike Pettin takes a lot of heat. And I don't like the term bend but don't break defense, because I think we throw it around for everybody. I feel like that 90-yard drive Atlanta had a couple of weeks ago, all I saw on Twitter, bend but don't break, bend but don't break. Is this Packers defense good enough to get to the NFC title game? Is it good enough when they have Kenny Clark to get to a Super Bowl?
I think so. And they just need to kind of play better against those better teams when it's called upon. And they are a bend but don't break team. And I think that's a sustainable formula. That drive from the Falcons was a great example of that. The offense and the special teams have not put the defense in any bad positions. That one, they forced the Dolphins to go 99 yards. You're forcing teams to put together 8, 10, 12 play drives to get 6 points. And I just think that's a really tough formula. They're keeping things in front of them. They're getting pressure on the quarterback a little bit more over the past 2 weeks. And everybody's looking at third down. When you're watching on TV, it doesn't always feel great. Listen, they're allowing 80% completions on third down. That's worse than the NFL. But they're still getting off the field. And they actually have the best 3 and out rate of anybody in the NFL. So they're allowing some catches, but it's underneath. They're keeping it in front of them. They're preventing the explosive plays. You're forcing teams to go 8, 10, 12 play drives to get points. I think that's a good formula. And I think Pettine can do a little more to kind of help the defense. I think the blitzing and the stunting is going to ramp up a little bit more now that those one-on-one guys aren't winning like they were last year, because he didn't have to do that last year. Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, and what Zadarius Smith did, they dominated one-on-one. We didn't have to blitz, stunt, do anything else. So what do you come into 2020 with? We're not going to blitz or stunt. Now we realize that's not producing like we thought it was. Zadarius is last game against the Falcons had the 3 sacks. He looks like he's getting there, but now we have to make some adjustments. So I'm interested to see if Pettine starts dialing up maybe some more pressure concepts or maybe some more twists and games on the D-line.
How big of a loss was Christian Kirksey?
Yeah, it's a big loss for continuity. Anytime you lose that quarterback of the defense, I think the continuity is really tough. We saw that Saints game where Chris Barnes and Ty Summers each kind of rotated with the green dot helmet. I don't love that concept for a defense. I think that quarterback of the defense, you want to keep him on the field, have a consistent presence and voice of the defense. So the fact he was that guy, that makes me worried. Now, his down-to-down play wasn't up to snuff like we had expected from Christian Kirksey. I think he still was kind of getting his footing in the scheme and just getting his legs underneath him. He made some plays. He looked good out there. He wasn't a liability, but just wasn't making the splash impact plays like we had hoped. So just from a continuity standpoint, I think the missing that linebacker position is tough. But at the end of the day, Pettine wants to go sub package, nickel, dime, load up defensive backs the second he gets. Not a whole lot of emphasis on that linebacker position in his scheme.
Unrelated, are you sick and tired of hearing about Patrick Queen returning a fumble for a touchdown last week by the rookie for the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, the Twitter sphere never seems to pass up an opportunity to let the Packers know who they could have drafted, whether it's receiver, tackle, a linebacker making a play. Patrick Queen is leading all rookies in tackles and I think run stops. He was a little slow to kind of see things for those first couple of weeks, but he's really hitting his stride and he's a nice player for the Baltimore Ravens.
Back end of this, Jair is all-pro worthy. I mean, Pro Football Focus had him as the number 1 rated corner in all of the National Football League a week ago. I don't even need to ask you how good Jair is. He'll be on Mike Evans for most of this against Tampa. But is there a more divisive member of this defense than Kevin King?
He's one of the tougher players in the league to figure out, and there's a number of reasons why. First of all, the injuries. So anytime you're on the field, off the field, it creates a very kind of clouded picture. The other thing, he's shown some flash plays. He's shown some boneheaded plays. So we have a very clouded view on who Kevin King is as a player. He's been unreliable as far as availability, and he's been up and down when he's on the field. And just when you want to write him off, he'll make a big play for you or a big run stop or that game-winning interception like he did against the Niners 2 years ago. So he has some ability. He just needs to settle down for better or for worse. And I think these high variance players are sometimes the tougher guys for organizations to figure out because you've seen the flashes. The player's agent is letting you know about the flashes, and that's what you're going to get for the next couple of years. But she obviously has some concern. So I think I want him around. I hope it's a friendly deal that we can work something out. But for better or worse, just settle down. If you stink, you stink. Show us you stink consistently. If you're going to be a consistent producer and a good number 2 corner opposite Jair, start showing up on a week-to-week basis. And I think in 2020, he starts to settle down, and he's been available, and I think the game is slowing down for him, and he's always a tough player, and I can handle that corner, on the field, and he's going to contribute in run support and tackling. And I just think his coverage has really settled down in 2020.
Follow him on Twitter at @BenFennell_NFL. Ben, I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on, my friend, and hopefully we'll do this again down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks to Ben Fennell, man. That dude was a lot of fun to talk to, and I appreciate him coming on. Again, BenFennell_NFL. Good dude to have on, and I said it in the open, and I do mean it in the nicest way possible. We're getting to the point where, like, stats and all these things are driving the NFL and college football, and you're seeing it when you watch, and Ben puts out a lot of those stats, and I mean this very nicely, that Ben puts out some really nerdy stuff, and if you're into really nerdy stuff, I recommend following him on Twitter and reading his stuff because it's pretty dang good. I want to close real quick talking about a tweet that I saw, and I know that this is kind of the in thing to do. I like Albert Breer. He's a good writer. He put out this tweet, and I don't think he was trying to dog the NBA, but I know a lot of people out there, especially people who are against the idea of social justice and what the NBA decided to do with their jerseys and the court inside the bubble. They love this stuff right here. This tweet came out, on Tuesday, and I took a screenshot because I knew I was going to talk to Ben today, so I wanted to have it for the back end of the podcast here. Sunday night's Vikings-Seahawks game more than doubled the TV rating of the Lakers' Game 6 clincher in the NBA Finals, with the two broadcasts going head-to-head. Football ratings are a little down, but that context is nuts. I'll say that again. The NFL's Sunday night game between Minnesota and Seattle doubled the final game of LeBron and the Lakers clinching the NBA Finals. And TV ratings for everything these days seemingly are down across the board, right? The only thing that is consistently going to get the same number as it has historically is the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, and maybe Amazing Race. I don't know if it still does or not. I have no idea. Like the other night, the Billboard Music Awards were on. I had no idea. I had no interest in watching it. The Oscars numbers are always down. The Emmy numbers are always down. And the NBA numbers are down this year. And there are several reasons that you can say the NBA numbers are down. Yeah, I think you're going to lose some fringe fans because they don't appreciate the social justice messages about ending racism. For whatever reason, people are anti-ending racism or anti-social justice or whatever. You're going to lose those people. You probably weren't the biggest NBA fan anyway, but that's just the case in point. And this can sound like excuses. This can also be reasons, because it wasn't like people, and the NFL is doing their part in trying to, create equality for everyone. They're not losing anybody. NBA or NFL ratings are up. NFL ratings are doing so dang well, it's ridiculous. And again, I think a lot of the factors that play into why sports are popular again has to do with how much we lost and didn't have because of the COVID-19 pandemic that, by the way, is still ongoing, but we just don't seem to really care. We got bored with it. But the NFL doubling the NBA, a couple of things. One, the NFL is king. There's a reason why I guarantee you the NBA doesn't like going up against NFL Sundays, or the NBA. They had a good thing going, man. Like, I watched a lot of NBA basketball in the bubble, and it wasn't just the Bucs. I watched a lot of NBA basketball. But as we got towards Miami and LA in the finals, and football is on Thursday and all day Saturday and Saturday night and all day Sunday and Sunday night and Monday, and this week we had a dang Tuesday game. As much as I love the NBA, I think I have become a super NFL fan. Like, I could watch Jaguars-Dolphins right now. I wouldn't care. It's the NFL. I might have a fantasy guy on it. You might have a bet on it. The NFL is just such a juggernaut right now that the NBA Finals, again, I'll say this again. The NFL is such a juggernaut that the NBA Finals, with the biggest star in the game, couldn't put a dent in their Sunday night rating in a Week 5 game. Is it Week 5? Week 4? Whatever it was. Week 5. Yeah, Week 5, sure. That is amazing. Yeah, that was Week 5. That is amazing. I mean, we're talking about the NBA Finals. When I was growing up, and those finals were in June, not in the month of October, but you didn't miss it. Whether it was Jordan's Bulls or the in-between years where it was the Rockets winning back-to-back or, Kobe and Shaq in the Lakers or the PGA Tour in Boston or whoever, LeBron with the Heat or the Warriors. Like, I watched the NBA Finals and never missed a minute. I don't know if I watched more than 10 minutes of the NBA Finals. It doesn't feel like basketball season. It's overshadowed by the NFL. If they start this league up, whatever the plan is for the 2020 through 2021 NBA season, they better remember not to be overlapping. They better remember to be done by the time the NFL season rolls along or nobody's watching. You know what I mean? Like, fall isn't for the finals. The finals are to be played in June. And I think we're learning that. I mean, outside of the Brewers, I haven't watched much baseball, period. But mostly in the fall, I haven't watched any baseball since the playoffs began. Very little. And I'm a sports nut. It's because the football games are on all week, around Thursday. And then Friday night, it's Friday night. I don't think my wife would appreciate it if I said, hey, here's what we're going to do this Friday evening. I'm going to watch baseball. No, we hang out on Friday, and then Saturday it's football and the babies, and Sunday it's football and the babies, and then Monday night it's football, and if we get that Tuesday game again, it's more football. So to see that the NBA got crushed, by the NFL ratings, that's not all that surprising considering how popular the NFL is. Also, I know some of the biggest basketball fans out there that watched the bubble games can't get into the bubble games, that were bored by the bubble games, that the atmosphere in the bubble just isn't very good. And I understand that. That's your prerogative. I thought the NBA did a good job of it. It's weird not having real fans and having the board of digital fans. I thought it was a cool try. It wasn't perfect, but I think both Major League Baseball and the NFL, both Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NFL, I think have done a very good job of making it feel like I'm watching something kind of normal. It's not perfect. You know that there aren't fans at Lambeau when you watch, and there's not going to be fans when they play Tampa down there at Raymond James. But there is, you do watch it realizing that they're playing in an empty gym, and that celebration was in front of nobody, which is kind of weird. And now LA, because of COVID-19, is not going to have a parade until the time is appropriate. And California's nowhere near ready to bust out a parade and let 1 million people line the streets in L.A. and do that all over again. Like, that's wild. So there's just been something lost inside the bubble that just doesn't feel as authentic. Some people are not watching because of the social justice issues and the fight. And frankly, the NFL just is the big dog right now in America. And that wasn't the most exciting matchup. I mean, some people are sick of LeBron just like they're sick of the New England Patriots, right? And I don't know anybody outside of Miami that's a Miami Heat fan now that LeBron doesn't play for the Miami Heat. Funny how that works. So, I mean, those factors all played into it, but it just shows you the NFL continues to be the absolute big fish in the sports pond, and it will be that way. I mean, I don't know what the World Series ratings are going to be, especially if it's, Atlanta and Tampa. Tell you right now, I'd rather watch Buccaneers and Falcons than Devil Rays or Rays and Braves. I don't care about that. I don't care if L.A. was in it. It doesn't pull me in the way that the National Football League has and always will for whatever reason. But I want to thank Ben Fennell for joining me again. Such a good guy to talk to. Would definitely want to have him on the podcast again. You can always find us wherever you get your podcasts, on Google and Apple and Spotify. And please do me a favor, subscribe and rate and review the podcast so I can help build the podcast so we can do more and more with it. I definitely appreciate that. We'll have a review of the Packers and the Bucs. I think Green Bay goes down and gets a win. I think it's a close game. But we shall see, and I'll talk to you after the Packers and the Bucs right here. Don't forget, tell a friend about Wickett on Wisconsin, especially if they are a Wisconsin sports fan. Thank you for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. With me, Mike Wickett. As always, go Pack, go Bucs, and go Brewers.
Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @Mike Wickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.